Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today I'm diving into a chilling mystery thriller called The Invisible. Spoilers ahead, watch carefully because nothing is as it seems. The story follows Nick Powell, a high school senior whose future looks as bright as the sun, or so everyone thinks. Nick's father passed away suddenly years ago, leaving his mother Diane to take control of everything. Determined to protect her son, she tightened her grip on his life, managing every detail. Diane insists Nick pursue a safe, traditional career path, but deep down, Nick burns with passion for writing and literature. His dream is to skip graduation and head to London for an exclusive writer's workshop. The camera then shifts to the Powell home, buzzing with life during a grand celebration. Diane stands proudly before the crowd, giving a heartfelt speech about her son's academic triumphs. She raises her glass in a glowing toast and even presents Nick with a gift engraved with his name. But while the guests clap and cheer, Nick's smile fades. He feels no joy in being paraded like a trophy. Slipping away from the noise, he grabs a slice of cake and retreats to the garage. There, in a haunting moment, he lifts a shotgun to his face, but then he jolts awake. It was all a nightmare, a disturbing glimpse into his restless mind. The next morning, Nick trudges downstairs, where Diane sits at the table with a newspaper in hand. On the plate before him rests 2 eggs and bacon shaped into a smiley face, her attempt at cheerfulness. Nick seizes the chance to ask her about the writer's workshop in London. Her answer slices him down cold. She doesn't need to think about it because he already knows her stance. She wants him safe in America, following the path she's carved, not chasing dreams abroad. Frustrated, Nick grabs his bicycle and heads to school, trying to push past the suffocation of his morning. At school, we see another side of him, resourceful and clever. He secretly does homework for classmates in exchange for cash, slipping one assignment to a friend and pocketing quick money in the bustling hallways. Meanwhile, his best friend Peter Egan isn't so lucky. Inside the boys' bathroom, he's cornered by a gang led by Annie Newton, a fierce and volatile girl known for her petty crimes and ruthless temper. A few days earlier, Annie sold Peter a stolen phone, and though he paid half up front, he still owes the rest. Now she snarls at him, demanding her money. With menace in her eyes, she threatens to cut off his finger if he doesn't pay soon. Terrified, Peter shrinks back as she storms out, her crew trailing after her. At lunch, Nick decides to step in. He walks up to Annie's group and lays cash on the table, offering to pay for the phone on Peter's behalf. But Annie isn't moved. She sneers at him and tells him to keep out of her business. Nick leans closer, his voice cutting sharp as he whispers that she's nothing but an emotionally broken person. Enraged, Annie leaps at him, ready to strike. The commotion lands them both in the principal's office. The headmaster demands an explanation, and Nick, with his usual sarcasm, quips that Annie finds him attractive. The principal isn't amused. He dismisses Annie with a warning and turns to Nick, urging him to stop wasting time on people with no future. His words sting like poison. Back at Annie's home, her world is revealed in all its chaos. She lives with her father, her neglectful stepmother, and her younger brother Victor. The apartment is a storm of smoke, clutter, and noise. When her stepmother lounges on the couch puffing cigarettes instead of caring for Victor, Annie explodes with fury. She shouts at her to feed the boy, threatening her to get up and act like a parent. The stepmother whines to Annie's father for support, but he sides with his daughter. Soon, their argument escalates into a screaming match laced with profanities echoing through the walls. Annie, hardened by years of dysfunction, simply shuts it out. She takes care of Victor herself before retreating to her messy room. That night, Peter visits Nick's house, the air heavy with secrets between the friends. He asks if Nick will attend a classmate's party, but Nick shakes his head. He has other plans. Then, in a quiet, dramatic gesture, Nick hands Peter a book. Inside is a hidden plane ticket to London. Shock spreads across Peter's face. His best friend is running away to chase his dream. He asks if Diane knows, and Nick admits she doesn't. He explains that since his father's death, his mother has smothered him with her plans, stripping away his freedom to breathe. Meanwhile, Annie is out prowling the night with her dangerous boyfriend, Marcus Boehm. He breaks into a luxury car with practiced ease, while she ups the stakes by smashing the window of a jewelry store and snatching a dazzling necklace. Sirens wail in the distance as the couple speeds away in the stolen car, adrenaline surging through their veins. By morning, Annie prepares for school after her night of crime. Marcus demands she leave the stolen goods with him, but her distrust burns bright. She refuses. Enraged, Marcus makes his move behind her back. As soon as she's gone, he betrays her, calling the authorities and tipping them off about her crime. Unaware of his treachery, Annie arrives at school and slips the necklace into her locker, believing it safe. But Peter, lingering nearby, happens to see her stash it away. He freezes, unsure what to do when Annie's sharp eyes catch him watching. Suspicion ignites like fire. The walls close in quickly. Police storm the school moments later, swarming the hallways. Annie is arrested in front of everyone, her locker burst open to reveal the glittering stolen jewelry. In shock and fury, she later calls Marcus from custody, her voice trembling as she accuses him of betrayal. He feigns innocence, pretending he knows nothing, but Annie isn't fooled. Her fury tells her exactly who sold her out. Later that evening, Nick arrives home only to be met with his mother's cold, piercing words. Diane informs him that the airline called his flight has been rescheduled. The truth slams into him like ice. She knows about his secret London trip. Panic rushes through him, and Nick stammers that he can explain. But Diane's expression says it all. She's not furious. She's deeply disappointed. Meanwhile, Peter makes his way to a house party, unaware that danger stalks him. Annie and her vicious crew pounce on him in the dark, their fury boiling over. Convinced that Peter snitched to the cops, Annie demands answers. Terrified and cornered, Peter blurts out a desperate lie. He swears it wasn't him, but Nick. He claims Nick already left for London and tipped off the police before fleeing. The false accusation seals Nick's fate. At the party, we see Nick himself, standing apart from the chaos, lost in thought. In a stunning move, he decides against London. Quietly, he hands his plane ticket and hotel booking to a random girl, as if shedding the weight of his decision. Then he slips outside into the night air, taking a lonely walk down the quiet road. But headlights cut through the darkness, and old, battered car tails him closely. Annie and her gang are hunting him. On a deserted stretch of road, the gang pours out of the car like wolves circling prey. They descend on Nick, fists and feet striking mercilessly. From inside the car, Peter watches in horror as his best friend is pummeled to the ground, powerless to intervene. Annie strides up to Nick, her voice dripping with venom. "Who's the broken one now?" she sneers. Nick, bruised but defiant, rasps back that she is still the broken one. The words ignite her fury. In blind rage, Annie delivers a savage kick that sends Nick tumbling down the embankment, his skull cracking against a rock. Silence falls. One of the gang members rushes to him, checking desperately. Nick is barely breathing. Horror spreads across their faces. They might have just killed him. Annie's bravado shatters, replaced with dread. Barking frantic orders, she commands them to carry Nick away. They haul his limp body into the woods, fear etched into every step. In the chaos, his watch slips from his wrist and lands in the dirt unnoticed, left behind as silent evidence. At last, they dump him into a storm drain, cover the grate, and flee into the night. Shaken, Annie runs to Marcus's place, her chest heaving with guilt. She confesses through trembling lips that she killed Nick. She begs her boyfriend to help her fabricate a cover story. But Marcus recoils, terrified of police involvement, and orders her out. Betrayal slices her raw. Furious, Annie threatens to expose the locations of every stolen car he's ever hidden. She storms away, burning her blood-stained clothes beneath a bridge, an unholy fire consuming the evidence. Morning light breaks and a shocking twist unfolds. Nick appears whole and uninjured, stumbling from the bush. Confused but determined, he heads to school. But something is wrong, terribly wrong. When he greets classmates, they ignore him completely. No one hears, no one sees. Desperate to prove his existence, Nick hurls a book off a shelf, but the crash draws no reaction. Panic rising, he rushes to the principal's office. Inside, he sees his mother speaking on the phone. He shouts, pleads, but his voice fades like mist. She doesn't hear him. Dread claws at him as he bolts home, racing across the street only to be struck head-on by a car. His body flips, smashes to the pavement. And then, an even greater horror, a massive cargo truck barrels over him. Yet impossibly, he stands unbroken, untouched. Staring around, he realizes the chilling truth: no one even noticed. Back at home, the nightmare deepens. He finds Diane speaking with police, her voice breaking as she reports her son missing. He waves, shouts, but she doesn't see. The words cut deeper than any blow. She believes he's gone forever. The weight crashes onto Nick. He may already be dead. Soon, detectives Kate and Brian begin their investigation. Deep in the woods, they uncover tire tracks and a shattered side view mirror from a car, a trail of violence left behind. They also hear whispers of Nick's clash with Annie at school. Suspicion sharpens. The detectives visit Annie's house, where she sits brooding on the roof, defiant yet fragile. Brian, who once worked alongside her father, tries to pierce through her walls. He asks if she's seen Nick, but Annie lies smoothly, claiming she hasn't since their school fight. Brian studies her carefully, sensing her pain. He knows she's struggling with the chaos of her father's second marriage, and though suspicion lingers, he lets her go with only a warning: call if anything suspicious arises. Meanwhile, search parties fan through the woods, calling Nick's name unaware. He walks among them, unseen, unheard. Alone in his room, Nick grapples with despair. He accepts the unthinkable: he must be dead. But then something strange pulls his attention. A fragile bird rests on the porch railing, its tiny body broken and near death. As Nick watches, another bird, alive, vibrant, and identical, appears on his shoulder. He lifts it in awe, only to watch it vanish in the same instant the injured bird outside dies. The revelation strikes him like lightning: he isn't truly dead. He's caught in an out-of-body state, tethered between life and death. His soul lingers, but his body is fading. When his real body finally succumbs, his spirit will vanish completely. Meanwhile, Detective Brian pays a visit to Marcus in his garage. Calm on the surface, but with suspicion in his eyes, Brian questions him about the jewelry shop robbery. Marcus, slick with lays, insists he knows nothing. He claims he was working right there in the garage at the time. But Brian doesn't buy it completely. He warns Marcus if he crosses paths with Annie, he'd better call the police immediately. Later that day, Marcus, jittery and paranoid, pulls Peter aside on the street. Whispering urgently, he says the cops are circling him, closing in fast. Desperation pushes him into reckless action. He drags Peter back to the woods, to the very storm drain where Nick's body had been dumped. With grim determination, they pry the grate open and lift Nick's limp body out. Together, they carry it to another location, trying to erase the evidence of their crime. But Marcus isn't finished. He's unraveling. Believing Annie is spiraling out of control, he decides she must be cut off permanently. He arranges a meeting with her near a train station, pretending he just wants to talk. Suspicious but unaware of his true intentions, Annie goes and even calls Peter to join her. She doesn't know the police are already tailing Peter, waiting in the shadows. The three converge at the designated spot. Tension crackles in the air. Marcus's mask slips. He whips out a gun, pointing it directly at Annie. His voice is venomous as he orders Peter to shut his mouth and leave. Just when it seems the standoff will turn deadly, flashing lights blaze and sirens wail. Cops swarm the area. Chaos explodes. Annie seizes her chance, snatching the gun from Marcus in a lightning move and sprinting into the darkness. Nick, who has arrived with the police, cries out furiously, vowing they'll catch her. To his astonishment, Annie shouts back, "Never!" His heart pounds. She heard him. She can't see him, but she can hear his spirit echoing through the void. The next morning, Annie, bruised and haunted, sneaks into Nick's house. She hides inside his room, her eyes drawn to his childhood photos. Slowly, her hardened armor begins to crack. She sees pieces of herself and Nick, another child raised in a broken home, both scarred by parents who failed them emotionally. The weight of her crime presses down. She killed someone who was far too much like herself, but before she can absorb more, Diane suddenly enters. Annie bolts, fleeing through the woods in panic. She rushes to the storm drain, desperate for a sign. To her horror, Nick's body is gone. Only a nicotine gum pack lies nearby, a subtle clue that Marcus had been here before her. Rage simmers. She follows the trail straight to Marcus and corners him, dragging him to the edge of a ledge with a gun pressed to his chest. Under her fiery glare, Marcus breaks. He admits what he's done. He moved Nick's body again, this time to the foot of a dam that will open in less than 30 minutes. The water will sweep him away forever. Annie reels at the news, turning to leave, but Marcus isn't finished. With treachery hidden in his sleeve, he pulls a gun and fires. The bullet slams into her stomach. Staggering but unbroken, Annie pulls the trigger in return, her shot striking him in the shoulders. Bloodied and fading, she summons the strength to call Detective Brian, gasping out Nick's location before collapsing. The police race against time. At the dam, they find Nick's body in the icy water just before it's too late. He's rushed to the hospital and thrown into the ICU, machines and frantic hands fighting to keep him alive. His body is there, but his spirit still drifts in the shadows, hovering between this world and the next. Meanwhile, Annie, her life bleeding out with every step, stumbles into the hospital. Her conscience burns. She cannot leave without making things right. With trembling resolve, she enters Nick's ICU room. Her voice cracks as she begs him for forgiveness, her tears falling like fire on her soul. She collapses beside him, pressing her body close as if trying to pour her strength into him. In that moment, Nick's spirit surges back, tethered once more to his body. But the cost is tragic. Annie's blood runs too fast, her body too weak. As Nick gasps back to life, Annie fades away forever. Her last act was not destruction but redemption, saving the very boy she hated days earlier. Weeks later, healing but forever changed, Nick visits Annie's little brother Victor. The boy's face lights up as Nick plays with him, laughter echoing softly. In that moment, the shadows of tragedy soften. Annie is gone, but through her sacrifice, she left behind a glimmer of hope for those she loved most.